Hello everyone, welcome to the Spiritual Insight Show. I'm Reverend Tiffany, White Sage Woman, and this show is for the week of October 26th. So at the end of October, this is a full moon week, and the energies just seem to be very intense for a lot of people, and it's okay. We're all going to make it. Even if it feels like we're not. It has been quite honestly, for me and my husband personally, the last couple of days have been kind of I must say maybe crazy, or some bizarre things that have happened. And we could say it was 2 days ago, our one of our neighbor's dogs we saw got hit, and she's okay now. She did have to go to the vet, and she had air in the lungs, and they had to release that. But to witness something like that, and my husband is always so calm and grounded in emergency, and me, that wide open empath, freaking out. I'm feeling the dog. I'm feeling the man who hit her stopped. I'm feeling his energy. I'm feeling mine. I'm just so much. It was overwhelming. I had to come back inside, and I'm glad my husband came home early that day, and he was able to take care of everything. Talk to the owner and help the owner out, and so she could get the dog to the vet. So it just was like, I had to come back inside and send some healing and just do some smudging and just connect to the upper vibrations, just to level out, just to calm down, to get to that center of balance. All right. And that's what meditation and getting into the upper vibrations is all about, that center balance. So then last evening, we were watching TV, and there was a truck, furniture truck, a moving truck, that had hit one of the power poles right at our corner. So if you haven't heard a transformer explode, or witnessed it, you think a bomb or fireworks are going off. Very intense fireworks, because it was very flashes of light and just the boom and the sound that. But I hear this all the time to me, the buzzing in the ears and that little electronic static, or so I hear that a lot anyway. So it's funny, listening to my husband and neighbors talk, that was the thing they tuned in was, did you hear that? And I was like, oh, I hear that all the time. So I'm thinking, I hear that all the time. I didn't even associate it with that. But that makes sense. Of course, it's electric. To me was the flash of light, and then that boom, the noise, to me that was on a different vibration of what I'm used to hearing on. So that's what I picked up on. So it's interesting. Now, some people may think, oh, that's terrible what happened with the dog. That's terrible what happened with the moving truck, the driver, and the other mover there, employee, the passenger. The driver actually on impact, because it was right there at the corner, so there was a house there. Thank goodness the city had some sort of railing up, but it just took down the railing, and that railing most definitely saved our neighbor's house being plowed into. But the window, I guess the impact of everything hitting that pole, the power pole that actually broke and ended up laying on top of the moving truck. And then the force of the whole hitting, like I said, the power pole and then the fence, maybe the windshield popped open, and the driver flew out. But you know what? He got up and he starts walking up and down the street looking for help. That adrenaline, that shock, that whole thing that kicks in. The passenger, though, was kind of stuck in the truck. They had to get the jaws of life to get him out. I do believe he had broken legs. But you know what? Those two survived. And of course, they've got some recovery and some healing. So everyone may think that with everything that I just said is, oh, that's terrible for the dog. Oh, that's terrible for the driver and the passenger of the moving van. But we have to look at it all, what we see. And this is what I had to tell myself too. I caught myself when I was watching what happened with the dog. With her name is Lucy. Lucy dog. So send some love and healing to Lucy. When I saw what happened with Lucy, is like, this is devastating. Why is this devastating? Why am I considering this bad? All right. Now, what's the good in this? Yeah, I want to see the whole picture, because I don't want to get stuck on just the bad part. And yes, sometimes what happens to the pets is a lesson for owners. And so that, I get it. And now, there can also be, and I don't have to understand the lesson for the driver and the passenger, because that's for them to understand. That's for them to know, to discover. We can all agree that sometimes it takes a major trauma, a major traumatic event to kickstart us back into what I'll call our spirituality. So how do we know these weren't kickstarts for that, for all those involved in what happened last evening? And I do have to say kudos to all the emergency personnel and the utility workers. I mean, they worked around the clock. I think we lost power after 9 in the evening. And now here in Connecticut, we had high winds, like 40-mile-an-hour winds with rain. And that's, we know, that's a dangerous combination when you're working with power. So it was just very, I came inside, because everyone's outside at nighttime, and like all taking pictures, doing videos. And I come back inside, and again, I send healing out. It just was like, okay, well, you know what? It's nice that it happened so close. This is a place where I send healing out all the time. So let's capture that and bring this energy up into the upper vibration, or bring the upper vibration down. And so that we all can feel it, and that it would help the workers last all through the night. So they did work all through the night, and power was restored after 8 this morning. So it was that's very fast, considering the conditions that the workers had to work in. And they had to remove the truck first before they could do anything else. Of course, remove the people first, and then they had to get the truck so that the workers could get in there. And had to secure that pole that had broken. So it was, I want you to always, I encourage you to look at both sides. And you'll catch yourself. You'll start to get to the point to where, okay, I understand that I'm seeing what I consider bad, and why do I consider it bad? This helps you to get to know yourself better. Why you consider it bad? Did you rationalize it in a personal way? Did you bring that to you going, what if that was my dog? And to know the dog. Oh, I know this dog, and I know the owners, and why would you think that it was bad? How would I feel? Is that what we classify as bad or good? Then let's take ourselves out of the picture for a moment. Take deep breaths. Center. We have to center ourselves to get to that balance, and ask, what's the good now? I've just saw what I considered bad. What is the good? Yes, things could have been a whole lot worse in both situations. So there's always a silver lining to these clouds, so to speak, to say. And there's always balance to situations, and we need to remember that. Good and bad is happening at the same time. You get it? That's part of the one. The topic today is the all, the one, universe, God, all of the words that we use to describe Creator, God, the all, like I said, the all. Now I'm going to use some Hermetic philosophy. I was guided to, and I've meant to grab his name before I started this show. I will have to put it, out later, who this gentleman was, but he's actually called Mr. Astrotheology on YouTube. Look up Astrotheology, Mr. Astrotheology, on YouTube, and you'll find, I do believe his name is Santos, his first name. Check out his videos. They're very, let me tell you, every time I watch his video, the truth just rings and vibrates in my body, and I know he's an old soul, and he's like many of us who have come back and kind of maybe still like sitting and waiting for the time. Well, the moment is here. This is no more waiting around. This is definitely, all right, we have work to do, and not in the doing aspect, but in the being aspect, to get us into upper vibrations, because upper vibration always is more powerful, and it always wins out over the lower vibrations. Yes, we'll get more into that. And I know there's so many questions that people have about the all, the universe, and God, and that we get to a certain point of we just can't explain it, and you have to be okay with that. That's because we'll get into that. Anyway, I'm going to read from, I've got the Emerald Tablet of Hermes right here. Oops. I will put the ISBN number on the bottom of this video on YouTube, so that you'll be able to see I'll put the author's name and the ISBN number, because I absolutely do suggest that you read this book if you're attracted to it. Are you pulled to it? This the first part of this book is the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, and I know many of you may have heard about the Emerald Tablet, those students of philosophy. And then and I hope I'm saying this right, Kybalion, Kybalion. Now, I'm going to admit right now, I've always had a very hard time with language. I can butcher any word. That was always been a challenge, but I find so many people do too. It's the English language, or just trying to pronounce words. Anyway, the author of this book is Dr. Jane Maiati Smith. She's the one who interpreted these writings. She studied for her Bachelor of Arts degree at Arizona State University and went on to receive a doctorate in metaphysics and spiritual counseling. She has studied hypnosis with Dr. John Kappas and is a graduate of the Hypnosis Motivational Institute. She's also a sound energy practitioner and vibrational Reiki master. She is a qualified mental health professional actively working in the state of California. Find this very interesting because it's, who is she? She's some type of historian. She's a healer who has interpreted 2 classic books on Hermetic philosophy. So I'm going to, this is story time with Reverend Tiffany. I'm going to read to you. I'm only going to read to you several parts. And then if you are drawn to this, then you will get the book and you will continue your learning and your education. As the Kybalion states, when the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. Isn't that beautiful? We've heard something too, like when the student's ready, the master appears. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. Very deep, very beautiful, isn't it? So many of you know who Hermes is. If you don't, there's a lot of information you can get on the history of Hermes. He is like one of the oldest master teachers recorded. All right. I'm just going to briefly go over some of this. And again, I hope I don't butcher the last part of his name. I'm sorry. He was known as Hermes Trismegistus. Yeah, sounds good. He's the master of masters. And he lived in Egypt in the earliest days. Early. He is the father of occult wisdom, the founder of astrology, and the discoverer of alchemy. All right. And like I said, this is early days in the oldest dynasties of Egypt, long before the days of Moses. Now, I have told you that my experience and memories of Atlantis was before Atlantis sunk, all the Atlantean priestesses and priests pushed. They have to understand, our finite minds might not be able to understand this, how powerful they were. They were able to take the secrets and push and create another reality, and they put Atlantean and world secrets at that time into Egypt and rebuilt in Egypt and also South America. And I think several other places. This is why we see these style of pyramids all over the world, no matter what the culture is. All right. Now, many different cultures identified Hermes as their gods. The Egyptians deified Hermes and made him one of their gods under the name of Thoth. Sound familiar? Here's another book I have yet to read yet, but it's the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. Ooh. So I can't wait to delve into this book as well. I'll go ahead and mention, I'll put the title in the info section on the video as well as the ISBN for this book as well. I haven't read this one yet. I can't wait. Just getting through this one first and then jump right into this. So, does that feel familiar to many of you? All right. Now, of course, the Greeks called him Hermes, the god of wisdom. Okay. So it's the Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries, yes, tens of centuries, calling him the scribe of the gods, and bestowing upon him distinctively his ancient title, Trismegistus, which means the thrice great, the greatest great, etc. And all the ancient lands, the name of Hermes Trismegistus was revered, the name being synonymous with the fount of wisdom. Very beautiful. So what I would like to go over, and this has a lot of great information in here, and I could probably just sit here and want to share it all with you, but I was guided what to share in this video, because those that would like to complete their awakening process by reading, by learning, then they'll get this book and they'll finish it. All right, so what I can go over, though, is the 7 Hermetic principles upon which the entire Hermetic philosophy is based, and pretty much covers everything that questions that maybe we've asked. So, of the 7 principles, here's the first one. The first principle is the principle of mentalism. Mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. When I read that, I had to stop for a moment and immediately go to my guides, because I thought, well, the mind, I thought, was not as powerful as our sacred heart center, our feelings, our emotions. And the guides kind of giggled at me like they usually do. It was like, you're humanizing the all. With the universe, God is the mind. And we are the feelers. Yes, our physical bodies has a computer of its own, has its own mind. But these minds are finite. The universal, the all mind is infinite. Now, I got it. I understood as soon as oh, yes, I understand now. This is why it's important to go within. And science has, yes, your heart has a mind. Oh, is this the infinite mind that's within? This is the mind that we need to, the mind, the heart and soul, that whole balancing right here that we need to be concentrating on. Then I understood. All right, so the principles embodies the truth that all is mind. It explains that the all, which is the substantial reality underlining all the outward manifestations and appearances, which we know under the terms of the material universe, the phenomenon of life, matter, energy, and in short, that is apparent to our material senses. It really all is spirit, which is itself unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite, living mind. It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation of the all, subject to the laws of created things, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of the all. In the mind we live and move and have our being. Right? This principle, by establishing the mental nature of the universe, easily explains all of the varied mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention, and which, without such explanation, are non-understandable and defy scientific treatment. An understanding of this great Hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement. The Hermetic student is enabled to apply intellectually the great mental laws instead of using them in a haphazard manner. With the master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge and enter the same freely and intellectually. This principle explains the true nature of energy and power and matter, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of mind. One of the old Hermetic masters wrote long ages ago, "He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path to mastery." And these words are true today as at the time they were first written. Without this master key, mastery is impossible, and the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple. So now let's talk about the second principle. This is the principle of correspondence. As above, so below as above. Now, many of you who have watched my shows, does this sound familiar to you? I say that a lot. This principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words: as above, so below, as below, so above. Also, as within, so without, as without, so within. So I always think that's funny when people go, "I'm without something." Yeah, that's because you're reaching outside of you. Why don't you go within to get it? And I always get confused. What? I admit, I did too, when first knocking on those temple doors. All right. And the grasping of this principle gives one the meaning of solving many a dark paradox, the hidden secret of nature. There are planes beyond our knowings, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. The principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. The ancient Hermetists considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Its use even tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. Yeah, I can relate to that. Just as the knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence enables man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Studying the monad He understands the archangel. All right. Let me take a sip of water here. Are you staying hydrated? Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Bless it too. Just bless it. All right. The third principle, the principle of vibration. Here you talk about, I talk about the upper vibrations all the time. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This principle embodies the truth that everything is in motion, everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. Facts which modern science endorses and which even new scientific discovery tends to verify. And yet, this Hermetic principle was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This principle explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration. From the all, which is pure spirit, down to the grossest form of matter, all is in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The vibration of spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest. It looks like it's not moving. Just as a rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless. At the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibrations are so low as to seem to rest. Between these poles are millions upon millions of varying degrees of variation. From corpuscle and electron, atom and molecule to worlds and universes, everything is in vibratory motion. This is also true on the planes of energy and force, which are but varying degrees of vibration. And also on the mental planes, whose state depend upon vibrations. And even on to the spiritual planes. An understanding of this principle with the appropriate formulas enables Hermetic students to control their own mental vibrations as well as those of others. Instead of control, I use command. Command is the upper vibrations, more powerful. The masters also apply this principle to the conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power, says one of the old writers. All right, so the fourth principle, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Degree. Does this sound familiar? Like in astrology, the degrees of the planets, of your sun, ascendant, and moon sign, the degrees of the houses. It's all degrees. Maybe extremes. All right, I've used before from one extreme to the next of the dark and the light, the good and the bad. They're degrees of the same thing on that same pole. Where's the balance? Right in the middle. All right. The principle embodies the truth that everything is dual. Everything has two poles. Everything has its pair of opposites, all of which were old Hermetic axioms. It explains the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows. Let's see. Thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. The pair of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes met. Everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything, etc., etc., etc. It explains that in everything there are two poles or opposite aspects, and that opposites are really only the two extremes of the same thing, with so many varying degrees between them. To illustrate heat and cold, although opposites are really the same thing, the difference is consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Our temperature in degrees. What degree is it? Look at the thermometer and see if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. There is no such thing as absolute heat or absolute cold. The two terms, heat and cold, simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing, and that the same thing which manifests as heat and cold is merely a form, variety, and rate of vibration. So heat and cold are simply the two poles of that which we call heat or temperature, and the phenomena attendant thereupon are manifestations of the principle of polarity. The same principle manifests in the case of light and darkness, which are the same thing, the difference consisting of varying degrees between the two poles of the phenomenon. Where does darkness leave off and light begin? What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft, between black and white, between sharp and dull, between noise and quiet, between high and low, between positive and negative? The principle of polarity explains these paradoxes, and no other principle can supersede it. The same principle operates on the mental plane. Let us take a radical and extreme example, that of love and hate, two mental states apparently totally different. Yet, there are degrees of hate and degrees of love, and a middle point in which we use terms like or dislike, which shade into each other so gradually that sometimes we're at a loss to know whether we like or dislike or neither. And all are simply degrees of the same thing, as you will see, if you will, but think a moment. And more than this, and considered to be more important to the Hermetists, it is possible to change the variations of hate to the vibrations of love in one's own mind and in the mind of others. And you will therefore realize the possibility of this being accomplished by the use of the will, by means of the Hermetic formulas. Good and evil are but the poles of the same thing, and the Hermetist understands the art of transmuting evil into good by means of an application of the principle of polarity. In short, the art of polarization becomes a phrase of mental alchemy, known and practiced by the ancient and modern Hermetic masters. An understanding of this principle will enable one to change his own polarity, as well as that of others, if he will devote the time and study necessary to master the art. How do you change the polarity of others? It's not by manipulation. That's low vibration. Upper vibration. And we'll get more into that. All right. The principle of rhythm. This is the fifth principle. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is a measure of the swing to the left, and rhythm compensates. This principle embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion to and fro, a flow and inflow, a swing backward and forward, a pendulum. This pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide, a low tide, between the two poles which exist in accordance with the principle of polarity described a moment ago. There is always an action and a reaction, an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking. This is in the affairs of the universe, suns, worlds, men, animals, mind, energy, and matter. The law is manifest in the creation and destruction of worlds, and the rise and fall of nations, and the life of all things, and finally in the mental states of man. And it is with this latter that the Hermetists find the understanding of the principle most important. The Hermetists have grasped this principle, finding its universal application, and have also discovered certain means to overcome its effects in themselves by the use of the appropriate formulas and methods. They applied the mental law of neutralization. They cannot annul the principle or cause it to cease in operation, but they have learned how to escape its effects upon others, or upon themselves, I should say, to a certain degree, depending on the mastery of the principle. They have learned how to use it instead of being used by it. In this and similar methods consists the art of the Hermetist. The master of Hermetics polarizes himself at a point in which he desires to rest, and then neutralizes the rhythmic swing of the pendulum, which would tend to carry him to the other pole. All individuals who have attained a degree of self-mastery do this in a certain degree, more or less unconsciously, but the master does this consciously, and by the use of his will, and attains a degree of poise and mental firmness almost impossible of belief on the part of the masses, who are swung backwards and forward like a pendulum. I'm just going to stop here and say that all of us are bipolar, right? Would you get that? Would you agree with that? And so then why is it being treated as a dis-ease? Anything that can empower us, for those that want to control us, oh, it's a disease, here, I'm going to drug you up. Just keep that in mind. It's not bad to swing from one emotion, one extreme to the next, as long as we find the center. The principle, that of polarity, has been closely studied by the Hermetists, and the methods of counteracting, neutralizing, and using them from an important part of the Hermetic mental alchemy. All right, the sixth principle, the principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. This principle embodies the fact that there is a cause for everything. Everything effect, an effect from every cause. It explains that everything happens according to law, that nothing ever merely happens, and that there is no such thing as chance, that while there are various planes of chance and effect, the higher dominating the lower planes, the higher vibrations dominating the lower vibrations, still nothing ever entirely escapes the law. The Hermetists understand the art and methods of rising above the ordinary plane of cause and effect to a certain degree, and by mentally rising to a higher plane, they become causers instead of effects. What's another word we would say? Effects. Victims. People who feel victimized. Well, let's rise out of the effects and move up to the cause. The masses of people are carried along, obedient to environment, the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves, the heredity, suggestion, and other outward causes moving them like pawns on a chessboard of life. But the masters rising to the plane above dominate their moods, characters, qualities, and powers, as well as the environment surrounding them, and become movers instead of pawns. They help to play the game of life instead of being played and moved about by others' wills and environment. They use the principle instead of being its tools. The masters obey the causation of the higher planes, but they also help to rule on their own plane. In this statement, there is condensed a wealth of Hermetic knowledge. Let him read who can. Let them understand. Who can, right? Now, the seventh principle, the principle of gender. Gender isn't everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. This principle embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, the masculine and feminine principles ever at work. This is true not only in the physical plane, but the mental plane, and even the spiritual planes. On the physical plane, the principle manifests as sex. On the higher plane, it takes higher forms, but the principle is ever the same. No creation, physical, mental, or spiritual, is possible without this principle. An understanding of its laws will throw light on many a subject that has perplexed the minds of many. The principle of gender works ever in the direction of generation, regeneration, and creation. Everything of every person contains the two elements or principles, or this great principle within him and her. Every male has a female element. Every female contains the male principle. If you would understand the philosophy of mental and spiritual creation, generation, and regeneration, you must understand this study and this principle. It contains the solution of many mysteries of life. We caution you that this principle has no relevance to the many base and degrading, lustful theories, teachings, and practices that are taught under fanciful titles, and which are a prostitution of the great principle of gender. Such base rivals in the ancient infamous forms of phallicism tend to ruin the mind, body, and soul, and the Hermetic philosophy has ever sounded the warning note against this degraded teachings, which tend toward lust and perversion of nature's principles. Think about what's a way to control the masses. What are you going to use? What tools are you going to throw at them? Fear and sex. Quite honestly, right? If you seek such teachings, you must go elsewhere for them. Hermeticism contains nothing for you along these lines. To the pure, all things are pure. To the base, all things are base. So that's very powerful. As I feel the power moving through my body. It's just like, woohoo! All right, I want to quickly go over a couple of other things for you, like the awe. It really goes into more detail about the awe, and it's very deep. I'm just going to pick some of the highlights of this, okay? So, what is there than higher than matter or energy that we know to consist in the universe, to exist in the universe? Life and mind. Life and mind is all the varying degrees of unfoldment. Then you may ask, do you mean to tell me that the all is life and mind? Yes and no is our answer. If you mean life and mind as we poor petty mortals know them, then we say no. The all is not that. But what kind of life and mind do you mean, you ask? The answer is living mind, as far above that which mortals know by those words, as life and mind are higher than mechanical forces or matter. Infinite living mind as compared to the finite life and mind. We mean that what the illuminated souls mean, and they reverently pronounce the word spirit. The all is infinite living mind. The illuminated call it spirit. Isn't it beautiful? All right. There was something else I wanted to highlight here. The all creates in its infinite mind countless universes which exist for eons of time, and yet to the all, the creation, the development, decline, and death of a million universes is at the time of the twinkling of an eye. It happens so fast, doesn't it? The infinite mind of the all is the womb of the universes. Beautiful, isn't it? And I think that's beautiful that they infinite. I, not me, is finite. You get that? Now, how many people, when they get an upper vibration, see an actual I? An I. People think it's an eagle eye, the eye of Horus, an I. How many people see the I? I know I did. Here's a little one, but see the I? Pretty interesting that had become to be the symbolism right here of infinite. Right there, the big I. Eye of Horus, all-seeing eye, that has so many different names. All right, so I, infinite, the all, me, finite, or finite minds. Me. Materialistic, right? All right, it goes into great detail about the gender too, the father and the mother, and how we do use it instinctively, because we call the mother Mother Nature. All right, the mother is the great creator. Without the mother, all right, without the womb, there would be no creation. All right. So some might think, is this an illusion then? And what is my role here on this earth plane? No, it's not an illusion. None of this is an illusion. It's all very real. And our role is to be. And the upper vibrations and the higher vibrations, we're being. We are human beings. Our ancestors have left keys for us. All right, you're going to pick that key up and go to that door? All right. Doing is a lower vibration. It's outside of you. All right? So, we're called human beings. Human. Man, mana. You know what it all comes down to? The hand. What distinguishes human beings from any other beings? Our functional hand. Hand. So, human. What do we do with, how does man create? Outside of him, with his hands, with his finite mind, we make things. Now, we can also co-create when we make babies, right? But there's another third way that we create, and this is being documented and proved on a very daily basis about manifestation, is our thoughts are connected to the infinite, and that we are creating and manifesting every day, and we have to be careful. That is the creation within. All right? So when we are outside of us as a human, are we manipulating? Or are you creating? Big difference, huh? Outside of us, we manipulate. Inside, we create. Think about that. Where's your reality? Where's your reality based? Where's the foundation of your reality? Is it outside of you, or is it inside of you? Is it in the infinite, or is it in the finite? So, I leave that with you. Really powerful stuff, and you almost feel like you get an initiation and awakening when you read this book, and the rest of it's very, very powerful. And the guides just share, okay, only read this part, and let those who are guided to read it, let them grab those keys and go to the door. All right, because you can just give the key to somebody, but it's still up to them. You have to go to the door of that knowledge in that temple, and you have to put the key in that door. No one's going to do it for you, and we know that. It's all about, are we going to step into our being? All right, so I leave that with you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email and notify me. I'd be happy to answer your questions. And if you have any topics you would like to be discussed in the future, please let me know as well. Again, I will put all of the book information, the authors, and the ISBN numbers at the bottom of the YouTube video for you to be able to find it. And thank you, everyone. And may the obstacles of your flight be few, and the blessings along your journey be many. Namaste.